Thank you very much, Mr. President, and honorable members of the European Parliament, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be in the European Parliament once again. And once again, I bring you greetings from the people of Somaliland. And before I make my presentation, I would like to give you a background of my country, Somaliland, because it's often very much confused with other countries whose names start with Somali. My country, former British Somaliland Protectorate, was established in 1884. And it was granted full independence and sovereignty through a proclamation from Her late Majesty the Queen on the 26th of June, 1960. At that time, it became the first it became the 12th African country to be independent and the first Somali country to become independent, because as you all know, there was La Côte Française des Somalie, which was French colony, La Somalia Italiana, which was an Italian colony. There's a portion of Somali people living in Kenya. There's another portion living in the Somali region of Ethiopia, and then there was British Somaliland Protectorate. And that title gives us a unique identity that Somaliland has never been colonized. We had a treaty of protection with Great Britain, but we have always been sovereign and had that agreement, that treaty of protection with Great Britain. And that treaty is what allowed our people during the First World War and the Second World War to fight alongside the Allies. When Somaliland became independent on the 26th of June, 1960, we became the 12th African country, and there were still 34 countries from Africa who are now sitting in the African Union who were still under colonial rule at the time when Somaliland was independent. And among those 34 colonized people still under colonial rule, there was La Somalia Italiana. Therefore, Somaliland and Somalia, when they united on the 1st of July, 1960, it was a union between two independent sovereign nations. It was not the conquest of one over the other, but it was a voluntary agreement, with Somaliland being the senior partner, because Somaliland had gained independence 1 week before Somalia. Fortunately, some unions work, but unfortunately also, some do not. Some partnerships don't work. Some marriages don't work. Countries unite, find it useful, and grow on this. Others find this union non-favorable to the partners who united, and they separate. And such separation came about between Senegal and Gambia, two independent sovereign nations who united, but 3 years later decided that they were better off as friends, as neighbors, rather than being united in a union they did not feel comfortable in. Somaliland and Somalia found their union difficult. Our Somali language was different. Our culture was different. Our traditions were different. The colonial partners that we each had were different. Our system of administration was different. I'm not saying one was better than the other, but we were different. And that difference made it difficult to continue with that partnership. And then, when our people voiced their decision that they wished to withdraw from that union and go back to the drawing board and rediscuss the terms of union, punitive actions took place against the people of my country, Somaliland. We entered into a 10-year civil war from 1982 to 91. Those punitive acts were perpetrated by Somalis on Somalis. People who had the same religion and who had ethnic similarities. When Somalia refused to listen to the will of the people of Somaliland, movements that were pushing for the separation and for the withdrawal of that union were massacred, were bombed, were shot, were put into mass graves. They were shot not by a sniper or two, but the cities were bombed by MiG airplanes, by military tanks against civilian populations. We separated from Somalia because these massacres were perpetrated against our people. Somalia perpetrated crimes against humanity, against our people. They flattened schools. They flattened homes. They flattened hospitals with sick people inside them. They filled the bodies of school children into mass graves after bleeding them to death and using their bodies as mobile blood banks. And mothers would tell children, if troops come into your school, don't stand up straight, particularly if that child was tall. Don't stand up straight because you will be identified as somebody, you come over and you will be bled to death. Hundreds of Somalilanders were massacred. Over 1 million sought refuge in Ethiopia, that became a place that held the biggest population of refugees at that time. Harta Sheikh, you must have heard about, in the late 80s and early 90s. Others went to Yemen, to Djibouti, and beyond, and many came to the shores of Europe and North America and elsewhere, wherever they could find shelter. Ladies and gentlemen, 100 mass graves were identified by UN forensic experts in Somaliland, many of them holding the bodies of children who were no military threat to anybody. How dangerous is a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old? I fail to understand. But shamefully, although these mass graves were identified by UN forensic experts, Human rights organizations have done nothing about this, or said nothing about this genocide and this massacre. And I would like to refer you to a document that was published by the United Nations, United States Human Rights Watch, and the title of which is "A Government at War with Its Own People." It's available online. I would request you to kindly read it. But where are we today in Somaliland? Once we ousted the troops of Siad Barre, the troops of Somalia, Somaliland closed its borders where the British had left it. We then embarked on an energetic reconstruction of our country with our own resources. Because Somaliland is not recognized, we were denied aid, we were denied help, and we could only rely on ourselves. But before reconstruction could take place, ladies and gentlemen, peace and stability had to be secured. The massive militia that defeated the troops of Siad Barre had to be demobilized in order for government structures to be put in place. And to achieve this, we developed our constitution, which we had it approved by the people, and 95% of our people approved the constitution. We are proud, ladies and gentlemen, that Somaliland has now been peaceful for 32 years. All the news you hear about the Somali coasts is not from Somaliland. We have held a succession of elections, presidential elections, parliamentary elections, local government elections, where every man and woman who is 18 years and over has a right to vote. In Somaliland, we generate our own resources. We defend our country. We train and run our police force. We have our own currency, our own passports. We also rely on ourselves to rebuild our country. We have established our local and regional courts. We run our government affairs. We provide health and education and social services to our people. We run a peaceful country where a woman like me, I'm an 85-year-old woman, I drive my own car in the streets of Hargeisa, and I drive from city to city without a need for bodyguard or without for anybody to protect me, because I live in Somaliland, where it's peaceful and it's stable, where I could invite any single one of you to come with me tomorrow, and I will drive you through the streets, as do the many foreigners who live in Somaliland. By contrast, our neighbor Somalia, that is recognized by the international community, depends on international aid and depends on international peacekeeping forces. I'm sure that anyone who Googles Somaliland will see the images of beautiful modern cities that have attracted tourists. We get tourists from the Far East. We recently had some tourists from Japan. We get tourists from anywhere in the world. We have also attracted foreign workers who come en masse to find jobs in Somaliland. And we have returned hundreds of thousands of our people from the diaspora, when by contrast, Somalia has been continuously sending out a steady stream of refugees to the world, while Somaliland has built a society founded on peace, justice, and the rule of law. diplomatic presence in Somaliland. Yes, we're not recognized politically, but although Somaliland is not politically recognized by countries, by any country, it nevertheless hosts the presence of many UN agencies. The UN has an office in Somaliland. International NGOs have offices in Somaliland. And an increasing number of countries who have representatives or trade offices in Somaliland live with us, such as Taiwan, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Ethiopia, Kenya, UAE, Djibouti, and also the US, after the Senate passed the bill to re-establish a presence in Berbera, there is an American presence. This has earned Somaliland the description of an area of special sovereignty by the National Geographic. And hopefully this recognition of our much-deserved sovereignty will become a reality soon. Our economy is the envy of many. It is increasingly attracting foreign investors from the East and from the West who wish to do business with us. And an outstanding example is the investment by DP World and the United Kingdom, who between them have invested $500 million to turn the port of Berbera into an international marine hub. That proves that there is stability in Somaliland. Nobody invests $500 million in a country where they feel their investment would not be safe. Britain is building the corridor, that road between Berbera and Ethiopia. And others are investing in smaller investments, in industry, in manufacture, in agriculture, fisheries, and of course, in real estate. Recently, our oil explorations have confirmed the presence of oil in commercial quantities in at least 3 sites, offshore and onshore. Somaliland has a coastline of 850 kilometers long, and which is pirate-free. We are strategically located at the mouth of the Red Sea, where 12% of the world's ships pass through. We keep those waters free of terrorists, not only to keep Somaliland safe, but also to keep world shipping lanes safe. Somaliland keeps watch. Our waters are also rich in marine resources that are waiting to be exploited in sensible and modern manner. Currently, clandestine fishing licenses are issued by Somalia to foreign trawlers who are destroying the marine ecology inside the waters of Somaliland. We invite organizations who, like us, are concerned about the environment to join their efforts to ours to protect the marine resources that belong to all of us. Somaliland has mineral resources also. We have gold, we have diamonds, we have emeralds. I did not bring my emerald diamond today. I came by train, so I don't like to wear emeralds. And we have the world's biggest gypsum deposit, second in quality only to the gypsum in Canada, which we believe has the best quality in the world. We're waiting for investors to help us process this gypsum into cement and to other byproducts. In regard to borders, at the time of our independence on 26 June 1960, Somaliland became a country that is sovereign and safe and we live and respect the borders as they existed at the time of our independence, when we gained our independence from Britain. And we live within those same borders today. Somaliland reaffirms its peace, its commitment to peace and stability of the region, which includes unreserved respect for the unity and the territorial integrity of nations. We stand neither for the cessation nor for the fragmentation or the revision of African borders. Ladies and gentlemen, our withdrawal from our union with Somalia does not make us the first sovereign African state to have entered into a voluntary union with another sovereign state and subsequently withdrawn from that union intact. Egypt and Syria, Senegal and Gambia, Senegal and Mali all have done the same and have never been punished for doing that, as Somaliland has been punished for the past 32 years for doing exactly what these countries have done. Ladies and gentlemen, the future for Somaliland is bright and is like a light that shines from the dark side of the moon. Although our peace and stability have been threatened by terrorists and Shabab attacks from Somalia in recent weeks in the areas surrounding Las Anod, Somaliland's track record of over 3 decades of stability has helped us to build the good relations that we have with neighboring states. Our growing trade and economy are also the cornerstones of our foreign policy, which envisions a more stable, democratic, peaceful, and prosperous Horn of Africa. We believe in our Sunni Islam religion, which does not condone acts of terrorism nor fundamentalism ideologies. The Constitution gives freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and freedom of education to our men and to our women alike. And in fact, 75% of the students in my university, the Adan University, are female. We hope that this light that shines on Somaliland will herald a new dawn that will bring justice to the people of Somaliland. People who have a right to be heard, to be seen, and to be recognized as responsible members of the international community, because Somaliland has never been part of Africa's problems. Instead, Somaliland has the political maturity and the African wisdom that our continent needs to bring peace to neighboring Somalia. And Somaliland needs to be part of the nations of the world who are genuinely searching for solutions to Africa's problems. And ladies and gentlemen, Somaliland is ready, is willing, and is able to take on that responsibility. Somaliland has been unjustly punished for the sins of others for far too long. For reasons unknown to us, Somalia, who has been the cause of our problems and of our destruction, has been left with the authority to represent us, when in fact, we have been separate far longer than we have been united. We wonder, where else in the world has the aggressor ever been given the authority to represent the victim? I don't think Hitler could have represented the people in the concentration camps as their legal defense. But Somalia, who has been the cause of the massacre of hundreds of thousands of Somalis, is now representing us. Please think about it. Somaliland instead needs to be welcomed back from its unjust exile to the dark side of the moon. Our voice must be heard. Our case must be given its day in court. And at last, justice needs to prevail because there is no reunification with Somalia, with fragmented Somalia, with chronically unstable Somalia that has done so much evil to our country and has been a haven for warlords, pirates, terrorists, and Shabab for the past 3 decades. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as we have done for the past 32 years, we in Somaliland continue to extend a hand of friendship to our neighbors, Somalia, for the initiation of serious dialogue, to find peaceful resolutions to our differences, so that our people may at last find peace on both sides of the border. And if we had peace, ladies and gentlemen, we could join our efforts to find solutions for our common problems caused by drought, caused by food insecurity, malnutrition in our people. Our resources could become better used to prevent and treat the diseases that are killing our people, and particularly our women and our children. And finally, we would better educate our youth, create jobs for them, prevent them from being trafficked to Europe and to beyond, only to drown in foreign waters or die in foreign prisons. Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely hope and pray that wisdom will finally prevail and that peace and stability may finally return to the entire Horn of Africa. And I sincerely wish to thank honorable members of the European Parliament and to His Excellency, Honorable Carles Puigdemont, for inviting us to this conference. And I thank you all for your attention and for your welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your voice has been heard clearly. Thank you for your speech. I open the floor. If there is someone who wants to put questions there and there. First you, and then.
Like so. I would first want to congratulate you on what you said about reconstructing your country without foreign aid and with your own resources, because I think not many people know how hard can it be. And I wanted to make 2 questions. One is historical. From what I read, I saw that the Somaliland Protectorate could be considered like a historical successor to the Isaac Sultanate. And I wanted to know your opinion about how much of this assertion that I just made is true, and if there are still an alive succession to this statehood about the Sultanate. And also, I wanted to ask you about if in the long term, Somalis and Somalilanders would reunite again. It is clear that the situation geographically and economically and politically is so bipolar that the question of the capital would be very hard to negotiate. So I wonder that if so many countries around the world have done like new capital cities like, you know, Brasilia or Nusantara in Indonesia, if I don't know anything, if maybe Somalis and Somalians have thought of making a brand new city in a centrally spotted location. So thank you.
I welcome both your questions, sir. Well, Somaliland is inhabited not by Isaacs alone. We have Isa, we have Samaron, we have Isaac, we have Ursengeli, we have Rubahante, we have Gaboye, we have Arabs, and we have Bantu. So Somaliland does not belong to either one of them. All of them belong to Somaliland. So what you have just been asking me is what some elements, some dissidents from Somalia, who know very well that this is not the case, tell the world. It's just one more misinformation. My grandmother is Darod. My brother-in-law is Wirsingeli. We are Somalilanders. There is no ethnic belonging. We all belong to Somaliland. There's no preference. There's no, Somaliland belongs to all of us. Reunification, I'm glad you asked me that. We have been separate far longer than we have been united with Somalia. Our union had harmony for 8 months in 1960 after we united. That was the only time of harmony we had. It took us a long civil war to extricate ourselves. And when we extricated ourselves from that union, we rebuilt our country. The Somalia that we separated from when we were bombed and destroyed was intact. In 1991, Somalia was intact. Somaliland was leveled to the ground. During those 32 years, Somalia has rebuilt, Somalia has fragmented, Somalia has disintegrated, Somalia no longer is. So, which part of Somalia would you advise that we reunite with? Is there a good part in Somalia that we reunite with? Because I don't know of it. And why look for another capital when we already have Hargeisa, the capital of the Republic of Somaliland, where I live, which is an old city that has been the capital of former British Somaliland and is now the capital of the Republic of Somaliland. Mogadishu has destroyed its capital. Maybe Somalia needs to find another capital for itself. We have our own, and we would welcome you to it. Now, we have cut away, broken relations with, separated from Somalia. Why reunite? How many times do you have a cancerous growth removed? Do you reattach the body to the cancerous growth again? Why? The answer is no reunification with Somalia, no reunion with Somalia, only peaceful, neighborly relations with Somalia, if Somalia wishes peace and stability, because unfortunately Somalia is gaining from lawlessness, and we don't believe in lawlessness. It believes in warlordism. Somaliland doesn't believe in that. So there's really nothing attractive that would make Somaliland want to reunite with Somalia. Nobody in their right minds would why don't you reunite with them? Because we don't see any value in reuniting with Somalia. We're grateful that we've separated, and we wish to remain separate. And if they want peace and stability, they want to trade with us, I treat their sick. I educate their children. We have their refugees with us. We welcome their poor. That's as far as we go until they find reason and put the gun down. And then we can trade, and we can be partners, and we can once again have a working relationship that functions in a sensible way, but not through piracy, not through terrorism, not through drug trafficking. Thank you very much.
Right. No, congratulations and thank you very much. I'm Frank Schwalbe-Roth. I'm one of the founders of the German Green Party and the first Green MEP here in the European Parliament. And thanks to Carlos that you brought her here. Great. My question is very simple. You have a passport in your country. No, show it to us. That's wonderful. But tell us how you came here. because I don't think that so many countries recognize your passport and tell us how it's possible to get a visa. And the second question, wonderful red color. And second question is, you haven't mentioned Puntland, which is a part of this part of the world where you're living. Now, to tell you something wonderful, I have been involved with the diplomatic academy linked to the Belgian University, VUB, and I was involved in a study on COVID in the larger Middle East. And we discovered the country from Morocco to Iraq, who was the most performant during the COVID crisis, was you. Wow! But I think partly because you have such a good relationship to Taiwan, who played a role as well. Now, I've been involved when I was MEP in writing the text to recognize the genocide of Armenia. This parliament was the first parliament ever recognizing this genocide. It was very difficult, but it went through. Therefore, please insist and look for intelligent strategies, and you have a strategist just on your left side, to get this recognition, even in a not so important parliament than the European Parliament, and then you will see it might spread to other parliaments as well. And never forget the proverb of China is to make a hole in granite is not the hammer, a permanent drop of water on the same space. Therefore, continue with your efforts, and therefore, congratulations what you have achieved in good governance in your country, and I'm totally sure you're on the same way as Timor-Leste. Few people thought 10 years before their independence that they would get it, but they got it. Stay quiet and calm and continue on your way. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Vielen Dank. Well, I will answer your questions. Well, I was born British because I was born for the British Somaliland Protectorate. I returned home in 1961 and I chose to give up my British nationality. I have a Somaliland diplomatic passport, and this is the third I think I have filled because I travel a lot. I've traveled to many countries on my Somaliland passport. But then I also have dual nationality. I was decorated by the Republic of Djibouti, where I went to school. And I served when I worked for the UN. And je suis commandeur dans l'ordre du 27 juin. Bonjour, monsieur. Et that gives me an honorary citizenship of Djibouti en tant que commandeur dans l'ordre du 27 juin. So I have my Djibouti passport. Britain kindly gives me 10-year multiple entry visas. Schengen gives me 5 years because j'ai aussi reçu la Légion d'honneur de la France. Alors, s'il y a des Français ici, je vous remercie sincèrement. Alors, en tant que avoir reçu la Légion d'honneur de la France, Schengen also gives me 5-year multiple entry visas, for which I'm very grateful. The United States also gives me a multiple entry visa. I guess they've known me for 85 years, and they know I shoot from the mouth. I don't shoot from the hip. So I am welcome to your countries, and I'm very appreciative of that. So that's how I travel.
But how do you get the visas? You have to go to what embassy?
Oh, either Nairobi or Addis or Djibouti. Sometimes when I'm abroad, my visa expires. I get it in whichever embassy is the nearest at the time in that country.
Oh, that means you have to go hundreds and hundreds of kilometers to get.
Oh, absolutely, or sometimes fly. Yes, yes, yes. I can do it, but then many of our citizens cannot do that. So lack of recognition brings on that injustice. It allows me to travel because I have the financial means, but what about my neighbor who may not have that? Puntland is a region of Somalia. It was a region of Midjartenia until 1998. Midjarten is a tribe like Isak that my son was asking a little while ago. And it chose to call itself Puntland to avoid being identified as Somalis. But it's a region of Somalia, La Somalia Italiana. That's the name they have chosen, and they have a right to change their name. I'm not going to say anything about that. It's their right, but that's who it is. COVID, we're grateful to Taiwan for many things. Our fight against COVID, the vaccinations against COVID, the tests for COVID, the PCRs were thankfully provided to us by Taiwan, the WHO, UNICEF, and Great Britain. It was these 3 or 4 countries and organizations who helped us in Somaliland to have the least casualties and demise from that terrible pandemic that affected us all. For the genocide, the UN has a presence in Somaliland. It has cataloged, it gives them numbers, grave number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but it does nothing against it, which is, I wonder why, because the UN should be a fair institution, a fair organization that should stand for justice and not for political recognition. And because it has 40,000 peacekeeping forces in Somalia, the UN keeps a very low profile when it comes to injustices perpetrated by Somalia. Read between the lines. And justice will prevail. The world will finally realize that Somalia has dependent on your donations. The billions and trillions that have been spent on Somalia to bring peace have not resulted in peace because they do not want peace. They gain from lawlessness. Instability and terrorism has become a very profitable, if I may call it, quote and unquote, businesses, industries. So if you want peace to return to the Horn, stop the money flowing into Somalia. Let them work for what they have, like we do. Let them sweat for it. Let them roll up their sleeves and put on their shoes and get up and work like we do. And stop depending on your money, on your taxpayers' money. Thank you, sir. And if I hear Germany, I recall I'm saved. I was very ill. I was evacuated to Germany some 40 years ago. I had surgery and medical treatment there. 45 years later, I'm still alive, and I thank you and the doctors who treated me in Germany. Thank you.
But I think they put doping in you because you are so full of energy. Wow. The 2 last questions, one here, and then you briefly, please. Open your microphones.
Thank you very much. I would like first to thank you and to congratulate you for your brilliant expose. My question is that issues related to ethnicity has been at the head of the exercise of right of determination and has even be the base of many secession in Africa. So my question is that I would like to know how the new Somaliland in its constitution deals with that question of ethnicity in a manner that takes in account burden made by most African countries in dealing with that question, and how it posits, especially when we know that on the African continent now, the trend is on integration, the trend of integration is growing up on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, the question of ethnicity in Somaliland, we all look alike. We have the same genetic background. I may come from one village, another one may come from another village, but we're still the same. And I couldn't tell who comes from where. I see some people from fellow Somalilanders sitting in here. I don't know them, but I'm sure they're Somalilanders. So we have no problem with ethnicity. We have the same language, and we have the same religion, and we respect all religions. We have Indians, we have people who come from Ethiopia, who have different religions to ours. We respect all ethnic, religious, and human rights. So there is no ethnic cleansing, because I wouldn't know who to cleanse, because they look like me. I don't know which one to shoot and which one to leave. We're all the same. So thank you for that. So rest assured, there is no ethnic differences in Somaliland. There is no ethnic differences in Somaliland. And how do they integrate? People integrate. They work, they live peacefully, they abide by the law, they have jobs, and they are welcomed. Many of them come with skills that we do not have in Somaliland. All the reconstruction, most of the engineers, most of the roads are built by Indian, Bangladesh, Ethiopian, Kenyan, and other nationalities that I may not know. The managers of many businesses I know are foreign. So there is no ethnic cleansing in Somaliland, rest assured. And come and visit us. Let me drive you around in my old Jeep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question maybe is a bit too silly because I talk without knowledge, but with all what you said about the situation in Somaliland and Somalia in the plate of the United Nations, why they still refuse to recognize Somaliland and still support Somalia in their efforts of war and not peacekeeping? Thank you.
If I had the answer to that question, I'd be a very wise person. I'm not. I don't know. Somaliland is peaceful, deserves to be recognized. Somaliland is democratic, deserves to be recognized. Somaliland is extending a hand of friendship to neighboring Somalia, pulling it out of its misery. Somaliland is not recognized. There is a conspiracy, an international conspiracy against Somaliland. There is an international conspiracy against democracy. There is an international conspiracy against justice. So help us together fight for it and find it. Because Somaliland, we have a track record, 32 years for goodness sakes. While Somalia has been fragmenting itself, we have been progressing. That is proof in itself. So whatever they may have thought 32 years ago, those past recent 32 years must have shown you that Somaliland means business. We have charted our way towards financial, political, economic, and human rights justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions, for your answers. We have no time, we are all the time. If we have some time, if a short one, okay, short one.
Je vais m'exprimer en français. Merci beaucoup, Adan Ismail. J'aurais juste une petite question concernant un peu l'histoire du drapeau somalien, la République. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a le grand concept de l'unification du peuple somali qui est réparti dans certaines régions de la Corne de l'Afrique. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est utopiste ou bien il y a une volonté quand même de beaucoup de Somaliens de rassembler le peuple somali, parce qu'il y a même une région de l'Éthiopie où il y a la région de Somalie, il y a aussi le Djibouti. Et donc, est-ce que pour ce qui est de un grand pays, du peuple somali? Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est utopiste ou bien c'est un idéal à avoir? Merci.
Merci, monsieur, pour cette question. Le drapeau somalilandais a une étoile avec 5 points. Et chaque point représente une portion de la corne de l'Afrique habitée par des Somalilandais. La Somalia italiana, la côte française des Somalis, British Somaliland Protectorate, the Somali region of Ethiopia, and the Northern Frontier District of Kenya. Voilà, ça démontre uniquement où habitent les gens, les Somaliens. Nous sommes 22 millions du Somaliland. Et chaque portion habite dans son petit coin de la corne de l'Afrique. Bon, l'union originale qui a eu lieu entre le Somaliland et la Somalia était justement pour rapprocher, pour réunir toutes les ethnies somaliennes de la corne de l'Afrique. Mais malheureusement, ça n'a pas marché, ça n'a pas réussi. Et c'est pour ça que nous nous sommes séparés. Parce que qui veut rentrer en union avec un pays comme la Somalia, où il n'y a rien qui marche, où il n'y a que le désordre? Alors peut-être, vos fils, vos jeunes, vos enfants verront ça, peut-être dans 5 ans, dans 100 ans. Mais je ne vois pas ça arriver demain ou après-demain. Merci pour cette question, monsieur.
Merci. Maintenant, on va passer à laisser le suivant orateur. Il va s'exprimer en français. C'est M.